we have Cowboys news coming in on the home of America's team.
Yeah, so Joel Corey over at CBS Sports yesterday had tweeted out that, hey, this is here on March 17th, Dak Prescott is due a $5 million roster bonus, and if they don't do something with that number by today, that is on their books and they can't do anything about it. That's one they can't adjust. They're legally not allowed to adjust it. It's stuck on the cap. So Field Yates tweets this morning that yesterday the Cowboys converted the $5 million roster bonus due to Dak Prescott on Sunday into a signing bonus, creating $4 million in cap space for 2024. The move reduces Prescott's salary number to $55.45 million. And this is the important note. This I find really interesting. 2 extra void years have been added to his deal for cap purposes. So, they have those 2 void years at the end of his deal. They've put 2 more years on back of it. So they've got 4 void years now. Technically, his contract extends for 4 more years. It's so that they can massage the cap number, do different things. But that, to me, throwing 2 extra void years on his deal tells me that they're at least ready to use as a leverage point that we can let this ride out. We'll just adjust your cap number. We'll restructure your cap number, spread it over 4 years. We'll do that. We'll go ahead and just, play with that angle. And so they could still get an extension done, but it tells me that they're at least putting things in place, that they're prepared in case they don't get an extension done.
So this is not a great sign that, hey, we want you to be our guy. It's more the opposite.
It's at the very least, it's insurance against you're not able to get something done. They're going ahead and laying the groundwork for, if we don't get something done, we're at least set up to spread this cap hit out.
LeSean McCoy, RJ Choppy, this is just for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
You're going to be very, very happy. I don't know what makes each of you feel slimier, Orlovsky aligning with Bobby, or you aligning with LeSean McCoy, who said this the other day on FS1 about the Cowboys' joke of an offseason.
Last year had 9 All-Pros. That's the most in the last 15 to 16 years. Do you hear that, bro?
I hear
9 All-Pros? And we want more? Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the real issue here.
Man, don't do it.
It ain't the roster.
Don't do
Oh, no. It ain't the free agency. It ain't the coaches. It ain't all the hype about the Cowboys. It's one position, ladies and gentlemen. And his number is number 4, and his name is Dak Prescott. That's the reason why y'all can't go past the divisional rounds. That's the reason why. And until you change that, there won't be no championships. There won't be no divisional games. There won't be no conference games. There won't be no rings and things. There won't be none of that. Don't worry about fantasy. You need to worry about the quarterback position. Because if he's still there, there ain't no winning. Ain't no rings. Ain't no confetti's dropping. It's going to be L's dropping. And it's going to be, I'll see y'all next year. Yeah, that's the truth.
So, Chop,
rings and things.
Played that just for you. That is basically exactly what you've been saying. We can do all these other topics, and we can do all these other angles, and we can address all these other things. Comes down to 4.
It does. It generally does for every team. It comes down to the quarterback for most of these teams, in my opinion. That's what wins you and loses you championships. Or, now listen, you can get over the hump one time.
Hump day.
You can get lucky, get a nice run. There's 3 guys in the league, 4 guys in the league that can win you a championship on their own. And then there's about a dozen guys who can win a title. They can win a title, or at least get you there in the right situation, in the right season, and then the rest of the league is crap. That's about half the league. And Dak is in that next grouping where, he can win a championship. You can win one with Dak, but it's a wild existence because you got to get a favorable draw, you got to get good bounces, you got to get a great defense that year. Everything's got to pop, and you can win. And that's just a terrible way to exist. And it's a frustrating way to exist. And unfortunately, this team has existed like that for 30 years because they basically had a really, 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 really good quarterback that can't do it by themselves, and they just haven't gotten lucky enough to do it on their own or with the team, with the player they have.
I hate that LeSean McCoy was able to slap his name on a group project the last 2 years of his career and win 2 Super Bowl titles, because the dude loves to posture from that standpoint. I've heard him do it more than once. The whole idea of look, I know what it takes to win a Super Bowl. I know what it takes. Blah, blah, blah. Really, you're with your 0 carries combined in the postseason for Kansas City and Tampa that you hitched your wagon to and won a Super Bowl. That drives me nuts.
I don't think of LeSean McCoy as a champion. If you ask me how many rings does he have, I may have said...
I'll guess 0.
I may have said
I knew he had 1.
One with the Chiefs.
Yeah. It was 2. He won back-to-back titles. He's a champion. He won a COVID title with Tampa.
With Tom?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And so
Gary
look,
Payton's ring means more.
Gosh.
Hey, Gary Payton hit the go-ahead shot in that game that you were having PTSD about earlier.
He did.
It's LeSean McCoy is just so predictable at this point. You can find any of his takes. He should know better. It is the same level of disgust I have with Orlovsky because he should know better as a former player. The delicate balance of you get to the postseason and how the margin for error is so thin. The reality is that they've been in a position to compete. They're a step behind everybody else. And I think that's as a football team. If you want to say that Dak's a step behind you, yeah, absolutely. Dak is not going to do the same thing that Josh Allen and Mahomes did in their back-to-back, like, we're scoring within 15 seconds game. That's not happening with Dak. But the reality is that you don't need to be that to win a Super Bowl. You don't.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. You can win a Super Bowl a lot of different ways. I mean, it's a proposition, though, that's going to require a lot of luck along the way.
Sure.
If you don't have that elite guy. That's fine. There's been plenty of championships that have been won with quarterbacks that are far worse than Dak Prescott. Far worse. That wouldn't even be, we wouldn't even consider them to be in the same sport as Dak. Dak's a tremendous quarterback. Just like if you want to have a guy where he could take you there by himself, I mean, that's just not him. And that's okay. There's a lot of guys. I mean, nobody in the NFC. Name me the quarterback in the NFC that could do that. There isn't one.
By the way, playoff games where LeSean McCoy got a carry, his teams were 0-4.
A lot of that with Philly.
Yeah, but I mean, then again, it is about the quarterback. It's not about his useless position that's not even valued anymore.
Meanwhile, you were feeling some Trey Lance remorse over the weekend, Bob?
In a lot of different ways. So you see that Kenny Pickett essentially gets a greater return than Fields. And after the Fields deal, why did you trade the most they can possibly get with incentives, with 50% playing time, which he's probably not going to get unless Russell Wilson gets hurt? The most you can get in return for Justin Fields is a fourth. You spent an objective flat fourth on Trey Lance for a guy that it doesn't seem like you have a good idea of what you want to do with him. Like, I don't think they have any clue. I think it was just brought in as a leverage point. It was a weak attempt at trying to create some sort of contract leverage with Dak, but I don't think they have any sort of genuine long-term plans for him. And if they got him for a fourth, thinking, well, we can flip him at some point, create value, maybe get that pick back, the market is telling you now you're going to lose value on Lance if you decide to trade him. Now they're stuck.
I don't think it's fair to compare markets, though.
Why?
Because things change. You pay different for gas today than you did 3 years ago. You
buy a house a year ago, it's a different price than it is today.
I have to judge you within the market.
But you have to foresee what the market is at quarterback. Consistently, if you want to talk about trades with Trey Lance, contract negotiations with Dak Prescott,
and you thought as of a month ago Fields was going for a 1.
Yeah, so and I'm an idiot. What do you like? I mean, that's a great point. I judge the quarterback market the same way that the Cowboys did. That's not a good sign.
I think we get surprises in the market, right? Like we got on them for not seeing where the wide receiver market was going with the Amari thing. With the $20 million, Amari Cooper, are you freaking kidding me? Well, the market that same offseason exploded and was like, yeah, that's actually going to be a bargain. So I think it's a good question of how much can you blame the team for a big dramatic change in the market?
I'll say this, whether it be contract negotiations, trades, whatever else, over the last decade, how often would you say, in retrospect, the Cowboys judged the quarterback market correctly?
What are examples?
I mean, Romo's deal that they gave him, Dak's deal that they gave him, they've consistently misplayed contract negotiations with quarterbacks, and then they make a trade for a quarterback that they clearly have now misjudged. I think that it just shows they don't have a handle on that quarterback market. That's the bad news.
But everyone else in the market also told you what it was, right? Like San Francisco accepted that offer based upon other things that they were getting.
San Francisco's like, don't get off the phone. We'll take it. Let's settle this right now. I'm just saying, again, when you factor in the idea of moving on from Dak, factor in the fact that they've consistently misjudged the quarterback market for a decade. That's something else that you have to consider, is that when they're going to try and fill that position, they're going to have to do it with one of the worst track records of handling the position in terms of negotiations, whether they be trade or salary negotiations, of any team in the last decade.
What do you think over Trey Lance remorse?
I don't have any. Look, I mean, they purchased him, if you want to call it that, in a time where there were no other quarterbacks in the market, right? I mean, that's who they targeted at the trade deadline.
But why?
That is a different question.
That is a different question.
Right.
Though.
You were willing to sacrifice. You knew but here's the thing. Back in August, whenever that deal was made, they knew they had a good handle on what the draft class was going to look like, for instance. They willingly sacrificed their top pick on day 3 in what they knew was going to be one of the deeper drafts in probably the last 5 or 6 years. It's much deeper than it has been in the last couple of years. And it's much more top heavy than it had been in recent years. So they knew what kind of a draft class they were looking at. And they, for what seems like on the outside, an ego play and a leverage play, they sacrificed draft capital. That's just bad team building strategy.